All right, breaking news coming out in about the past hour. As take a look at the live updates, Charlie Kirk shooting suspect Tyler Robinson has been charged with murder. Prosecutors seek the death penalty. Robinson, who is 22, will appear in court today for the first time after being arrested on suspicion of fatally shooting the conservative activist on September 10th. We're hearing that at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, he is going to be on trial. That is within 1 hour of right now. Breaking, and take a look at the top of the screen. Text messages allegedly detail the suspect's confession in the Charlie Kirk's killing. I'm going to share that with you so you can see it for yourself here. We're going to watch the actual video footage in just a second, what has just come out. Now, take a look at what we know so far. Tyler Robinson, 22, is set to appear in court today for the first time after being arrested on suspicions of fatally shooting conservative activist Charlie Kirk on September 10th. The Utah County Attorney's Office announced today that Robinson is charged with aggravated murder and obstruction of justice, among other charges. Prosecutors announced that they will seek the death penalty. Robinson will make a virtual court appearance later at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Kirk's death caused an outpouring of grief and a determination to carry on his conservative message from political allies, including President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. Now, in addition to that, FBI Director Kash Patel reveals details about alleged Kirk assassins' texts. We're hearing that they have now been able to prove that it was him via these text messages. You're going to see it all. I'm going to play for you the video footage. They're going to break it down in a lot of detail. In fact, we're hearing that it was actually the mother that first identified him and said, that looks like my son. That looks like his grandfather's rifle. And she was the one that initiated the search into whether or not it was their son. Now, let's go ahead and watch this so that way you can see it for yourself. This is just coming out in about almost 2 hours ago now. They did this press release, and within 1 hour from now, we're hearing that that trial is going to start and they are seeking the death penalty. And if you like the sound of that and you think that this individual should face that death penalty, put yes in the comments. Now, if you think no, put no. But let's go ahead and take a look at the video footage.
The murder of Charlie Kirk is an American tragedy. Charlie Kirk was murdered while engaging in one of our most sacred and cherished American rights, the bedrock of our democratic republic, the free exchange of ideas in a search for truth, understanding, and a more perfect union. It is also an offense against the state and to the peace and enjoyment of the people of Utah and of all those who visit here. But Charlie Kirk's murder also strikes a more personal and intimate chord. Charlie Kirk was first and foremost a husband and a father to two beautiful young children. He was a son, he was a brother, and a friend. Like all murders, the senseless and needless taking of Charlie Kirk's life has shattered the lives of those he loved and those who loved him. To Charlie's wife, Erica, his two young children, his parents, his family, and his friends, I express my sincere condolences.
Hello, my name is Adam Ferrari, the Chief Executive Officer of Phoenix Energy. I look forward to you
And offer my heartfelt prayers on your behalf. I also want to express my concern for everyone who was at Charlie's Turning Point USA event at the Utah Valley University, and all who have been impacted by this tragedy. As county attorney, I am charged with bringing justice to those who offend our laws. I am charged with bringing justice for those who are harmed. I am charged with bringing justice for Charlie Kirk. I am committed to these aims. I take this responsibility seriously. Today, after reviewing the evidence that law enforcement has collected thus far, I am filing a criminal information charging Tyler James Robinson, age 22, with the following crimes. Count 1, aggravated murder, a capital offense, for intentionally or knowingly causing the death of Charlie Kirk under circumstances that created a great risk of death to others. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, a first-degree felony. The state is further alleging aggravating factors on counts 1 and 2 because the defendant is believed to have targeted Charlie Kirk based on Charlie Kirk's political expression and did so knowing that children were present and would witness the homicide. The state is also charging defendant with count 3, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony for moving and concealing the rifle used in the shooting. Count 4, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony for disposing the clothing he wore during the shooting. Count 5, witness tampering, a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to delete his incriminating texts. Count 6, witness tampering, a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to stay silent if police questioned him. And count 7, commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child, a Class A misdemeanor, for committing homicide knowing that children were present and may have seen or heard the murder and did so based on Charlie Kirk's political expression. Also, following the press conference, I am filing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty. I do not take this decision lightly, and it is a decision I have made independently as county attorney, based solely on the available evidence and circumstances and nature of the crime. Because we are seeking the death penalty, the defendant will continue to be held without bail in the Utah County Jail. Turning to the 10-page information, these are the allegations. On September 10th, 2025, at approximately 12:23 p.m., Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while speaking to a large crowd on the campus of Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Police found the suspected murder weapon, a bolt-action .30-06 rifle, nearby. Over the next approximately 33 hours, police conducted a manhunt for the shooter until the evening of September 11th, 2025, when Tyler James Robinson surrendered to police at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. DNA consistent with Robinson was found on the rifle's trigger. After shooting Mr. Kirk, Robinson hid the gun, discarded the clothing he wore when he fired the rifle, and told his roommate to delete incriminating text messages and not talk to police. Children were present at the time of the shooting. The shooting. Turning Point USA, a nonprofit organization founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk, organized a public outdoor event to be held at noon on September 10th, 2025 at UVU. The event was the first in a series of similar events to be held at college campuses nationwide. Mr. Kirk is a well-known conservative activist famous for these type of events where he discusses various political issues and debates with audience members. His events and comments have garnered a significant number of supporters and drawn the ire of many who disagree with his political views. The event at UVU was announced far in advance and garnered significant publicity and interest. Consequently, several hundred people attended. Mr. Kirk was interacting with a crowd before the event officially got underway. Then, at approximately noon, Mr. Kirk seated himself under a portable canopy behind a table and microphone. He began speaking to the crowd and fielding questions from attendees, a format Mr. Kirk commonly used at his events. Mr. Kirk allowed his questioners to approach a microphone positioned directly in front of him. Mr. Kirk's team members were very close to him on his right and left, as well as some behind his canopy and others at various close locations near him. The large crowd surrounded Mr. Kirk on three sides. Temporary metal fencing separated attendees from Mr. Kirk by only a matter of feet. Directly above and behind Mr. Kirk was the UVU Hall of Flags, an indoor walkway spanning several hundred feet with floor-to-ceiling glass windows which overlooked the plaza where Mr. Kirk was seated. People were in the walkway at the time of the shooting. Approximately 15 minutes into the event, Mr. Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings by transgender individuals when a gunshot rang out. The bullet struck Mr. Kirk in the neck. He slumped to the ground almost immediately. The bullet's trajectory passed closely to several other individuals beside Mr. Kirk, including the questioner who was standing directly in front of Mr. Kirk. Children were visible near Mr. Kirk's stage when he was shot. Mr. Kirk was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was declared deceased. The medical examiner's report is still pending. So UVU surveillance. So at the moment of the shot, a UVU police officer was watching the crowd from an elevated vantage point. As soon as he heard the shot, he began to scan the area for threats. Believing the shot came from a rifle because of its sound, he looked for potential sniper positions. He noted a roof area approximately 160 yards away from Mr. Kirk as a potential shooting position and rushed there to look for evidence. The suspected shooting position is adjacent to an open, publicly accessible walkway. To access the suspected location, a person must climb over a railing and then drop to the roof only slightly below. The UV officer climbed over the railing and down onto the roof. He then walked to the suspected shooting position and confirmed a clear shooting corridor between the position and Mr. Kirk's seat. He also noticed markings in the gravel rooftop, consistent with a sniper having lain on the roof, impressions in the gravel potentially left by the elbows, knees, and feet of a person in a prone shooting position. Police reviewed surveillance from the camera covering the roof and discovered that it recorded an individual dressed in dark clothing cross the railing from the public walkway and drop onto the roof at approximately 12:15 p.m. Although the individual moved out of the camera's view for a short time, the camera again captured the individual running across the roof and then low crawling to the area the UVU officer recognized as where the suspected sniper had dropped into a prone shooting position. After a short time, which matches the known time of the shot, the individual arose and ran across the roof to the northeast. This discovery led to an intensive review of UVU surveillance recordings to attempt to track and identify the suspect. Surveillance revealed the following. At approximately 11:51 a.m., the suspect entered campus from the north. He is seen wearing a black shirt with an American flag in the center, a dark baseball cap, and large sunglasses. Throughout the surveillance, the suspect keeps his head down and rarely raises his head enough to get a clear image of his face. As he proceeds across the campus, he is seen walking with an unusual gait. The suspect walks with very little bending in his right leg, consistent with a rifle being hidden in his pants. This unusual gait continues until the suspect is seen crossing the railway off the open walkway and onto the roof, where he leaves the camera's view. A camera later captures the suspect as he runs across the roof to the suspected shooting position. Immediately after the shot was fired, a camera captures the suspect running across the roof carrying an item whose shape is consistent with a rifle. The suspect is then seen climbing down from the roof. He appears to drop the item he was carrying as he hits the ground in a controlled fall. He then picks up the item and runs toward the northeast end of campus. Expanded crime scene investigation. Law enforcement officers followed the suspect's escape path to the northeast end of campus, where they believe the suspect left campus and entered a wooded area. In that wooded area, investigators found a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel. The rifle contained 1 spent round and 3 unspent rounds. This is consistent with the facts officers observed at the time of and immediately after the shootings. No shell casings were found on the roof, suggesting a bolt action rather than an auto-loading weapon, and only a single round was fired. Each round in the rifle contained an etched inscription as follows. The fired cartridge was etched, "No Tice's bulge, OWO, what's this?" The second cartridge that was again not spent, the last 3 were not spent, were not fired. The second, "Hey fascist, catch," with arrow symbols. The third cartridge, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow." The fourth cartridge, "If you read this, you are gay," LMAO. The rifle, ammunition rounds, and towel were sent for forensic processing. DNA consistent with defendant was found on the trigger, other parts of the rifle, the fired cartridge casing, 2 of the 3 unfired cartridges, and the towel. Law enforcement was unable to immediately locate the shooter, so they published photos of the shooter from the UVU surveillance cameras and asked for the public's help to identify him. Meanwhile, law enforcement continued to try to identify the shooter through other means. The Washington County investigation. On the evening of September 11th, 2025, as law enforcement continued their investigation, Tyler James Robinson went to the Washington County Sheriff's Office with his parents and a family friend to turn himself in. Robinson's mother stated that the following to police. On September 11, 2025, the day after the shooting, Robinson's mother saw the photo of the shooter in the news and thought the shooter looked like her son. Robinson's mother called her son and asked him where he was. He said he was at home sick, and that he had also been at home homesick on September 10th. Robinson's mother expressed concern to her husband that the suspect shooter looked like Robinson. Robinson's father agreed. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there is too much evil and the guy, referring to Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate. They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff. At Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn himself in. The family friend spoke to police and reported telling Robinson that it would be best if he brought all evidence with him to the sheriff's office to avoid police having to search his parents' home. The friend also asked Robinson if he had any clothes that were related to what he did. Robinson replied that he had disposed of the clothes in different areas. The roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange, then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson, "I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." Roommate, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" Robinson, I am. I'm sorry." Roommate, "I thought they caught the person." Robinson, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." Roommate, "Why?" Robinson, "Why did I do it?" Roommate, "Yeah." Robinson, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to
So I just want to pause it right there and let you know that is the text messages they're saying they've recovered that have identified him as the shooter. They're saying that this has been the key moment right here. These text messages that tie him directly to the shooting. Just wanted to mention that right now, that they're saying this is a very important piece of key information. Let's continue listening.
Retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Roommate, "How long have you been planning this?" Robinson, "A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it." Robinson again, "I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. IDEK if it's had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The F in messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notice bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke all right. I'm going to have to leave it. That really effing sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine, IDK. I think that was a $2K dollar scope. Wink, wink. Robinson again. Delete this exchange. Again, Robinson. My dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me, RN. Not answering. Robinson. Since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson. I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Again, you are all I worry about, love. That came from Robinson. Roommate. I'm much more worried about you. Robinson. Don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. The search for Robinson's residence. Police executed a search warrant on Robinson's residence. During that search, police discovered a shell casing with etchings like the etchings found on the shells in the rifle near UVU. Police also found several target boards with bullet holes in Robinson's home. Now, as I stated in the beginning, when I read those allegations, these are allegations. And like the evidence set forth in this statement, those allegations, what you've heard from the media, even from state and federal officials, has not been tested in the crucible of a jury trial. I understand the public's desire to know the facts. My own family members have pressed me for information. Why are we reluctant to share the details of the investigation itself and comment on the case? Because I want to ensure a fair and impartial trial. I became a prosecutor because of my love for the ideals of this great country and the principles embedded in our Constitution. The free exchange of ideas and opinions is critical to this great American experiment, but so too are the protections afforded to the accused found in the Fifth and Sixth Amendments. The right against self-incrimination, the right to a speedy and public trial, the right to the effective assistance of counsel, the right to confront one's accusers, and the right to compel the attendance of witnesses. And perhaps most importantly, under our Constitution, the accused is presumed innocent until we, the state, prove to an impartial jury of defendant's peers his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That jury cannot rely on our allegations, on what they hear in the news, or on what they hear from a public official. The jury is the sole trier of fact, and they will ultimately determine those facts based on evidence a trial judge has determined is admissible. Again, as prosecutors, we bear the burden to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But make no mistake, we welcome this burden. I'd like to now introduce my trial team who will be charged with prosecuting the case. This is a veteran and expert team of some of the state's best trial attorneys. Chad Grunander, who is one of my two chief deputies, Ryan McBride and David Sturgill on the far right there. And those two were very much involved in preparing search warrants, did a phenomenal job, worked day and night to see that accomplished well after he was, Robinson was taken into custody. Also, Lauren Hunt, she is one of our special victims prosecutors, and Chris Ballard, my second chief deputy, who will be handling motions. I'm going to explain just the procedural steps. We're not a grand jury. We don't have a grand jury system like the federal courts do. It's a preliminary hearing system. So the arrest and filing of the criminal information are merely the first steps in the criminal justice process. Today at 3 p.m., the defendant will appear before a judge in the Utah 4th District Court for his first appearance to be informed of these charges and to ensure that he has an attorney to represent him. The hearing will be brief. The judge will conduct that first appearance virtually via WebEx. This is not unusual. In the 4th District, all felony first appearances for defendants who are in custody are held virtually. A link to that hearing is available for media on the Utah State Courts X account at Utah State Courts. Now, following defendant's first appearance, he will be entitled to a preliminary hearing. At that hearing, the state will be required to show probable cause that defendant committed the crimes. The purpose of the preliminary hearing is not to determine guilt, but simply to assure the court that the prosecution has enough evidence to proceed to trial. If a judge finds probable cause and binds the case over for trial, an arraignment hearing will be held. At that hearing, a judge will again inform defendant of the charges against him and require him to enter a plea to each charge. The next step following the arraignment is an opportunity for the parties to file any relevant motions and then ultimately the trial itself. This case has generated a tremendous amount of interest across our nation and even the world. The public's desire for information is understandable, but it bears reiterating that this case will be tried in a court of law consistent with our Constitution, not the court of public opinion. Thus, we will only discuss the case with the press occasionally. It will not be a day-to-day or even week-to-week occurrence, but we will only do so in a manner as not to jeopardize the fair trial process. Before I conclude, I want to express my appreciation for the tireless work of our local, state, and federal law enforcement officers. They have an extremely difficult, dangerous, and often thankless job. I'm proud to acknowledge the exceptional work they do every day, and particularly their work on this case. It was truly a marvel to witness. Their skilled work and dedication have brought us to this point. I'm also grateful for the leadership demonstrated by Bo Mason, the Commissioner of the Utah Department of Public Safety, FBI Special Agent in Charge Rob Bowles, Utah County Sheriff Mike Smith, our local police chiefs, and Felice John Vitti, the acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Utah. I'm also grateful for the support of our Governor, Spencer Cox, and our Attorney General, Derek Brown, who is standing behind me today and has offered his support and resources as we proceed to trial. Finally, I want to thank our Utah County Commissioners, Amelia Powers Gardner, Brandon Gordon, and Skylar Beltran. They too have pledged to assist with the resources needed to successfully prosecute this case. I will now take a few questions.
For questions, ladies and gentlemen, just really fast, if you could identify yourself and what organization. Yes, thank you.
Okay. They are still looking into it. It's an undergoing investigation.
Well, let's go to Matt.
They haven't ruled that out.
Ed Lavendera with CNN, the text message that the exchange
several hours? Did it happen?
I don't have that information.
Emily Anderson, Stern Solid Tribune. I know, acknowledging that you made this decision to sue the death penalty independently, did you hear at all from the Trump administration or Governor Cox's administration as you were working on these charges?
I talked to officials from both administrations, but I was not pressured to make a decision. I understood their feelings on it because it was in the news, but we didn't really discuss that.
Mr. Gray, Gary Tenney with Fox News. Do you have any indication that transgender issues played a role in the motivations for this shooter?
I'm going to stick to what I just stated in my public, in our information. I think that is pretty much set forth there.
Mr. Gray, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News. Just asking, are you planning to file additional charges against anyone else in connection with this?
Again, we don't have any information at this point of additional suspects, but I know that our law enforcement agencies are continuing to follow leads.
Mr. Gray, the FBI director today said that you are both, or that other people, a number of people are being investigated and interrogated. So it seems that there are people who might be up for prosecution.
Yeah, I'm not.
Do you think the suspect was a lone wolf, or could this be part of
I can't comment on that. I'm not aware of all their investigation. I just know that these agencies are continuing to investigate this case and follow all leads.
Dennis O'Keefe with BBC News.
Would like to know, how does this possibly interface with any federal charges?
That's up to the feds. They have different charges, and they're reviewing the evidence. And after they review the evidence and the law, they could file charges, but I'm not privy to exactly what they're looking at.
Dennis O'Keefe with the BBC. You spoke a lot about text messages with the roommate. The governor previously said the roommate is cooperating, but could we see charges against the roommate?
Again, I'm not prepared to answer that question.
Is it unusual to cite a political motivation as an aggravating circumstance?
It's part of our code, and so we charge that.
For those that aren't of a legal mind, is this a confession to text messages? Is that legally a confession? And is he cooperating since he's been taken into custody?
Ultimately, a judge will determine that at trial.
And cooperation, has he spoken at all? Has he been cooperating?
Again, I'm not going to comment on that.
I mean, any statements at all?
Mr. Gray, we're investigating these news.
Okay.
What would you tell us about the suspect's time online that some say radicalized him?
I am not aware of that information. It's, again, still under investigation.
And has he expressed any remorse so far about this?
I am not going to comment on that.
Is he continuing to not cooperate?
I am not going to comment on that.
Mr. Gray, the FBI director has been way out in front in terms of presenting evidence to the public. Your team has been very circumspect, very measured in what they let out. Does that hamper your investigation and the go to this?
Well, as attorneys, we typically like to control that information to preserve an impartial jury and a fair trial.
So has he ever investigation?
Ex- Excuse me? I don't have that information.
Can you tell us more about what the family may have said in interviews? His
Um,
father's mother?
What the family said is what I provided.
Do you anticipate that the defense will try to get this trial moved out of Utah County, and how will you respond to that?
That from where?
From Utah County?
That the defense will be from Utah County?
Well, that they will try to get the trial moved.
I couldn't predict what they're going to do.
You say, does any of this suggest that the timing of the shot and the question that was asked about mass shooting transgender, is that more than coincidence?
That will be for a jury to decide.
Mr. Gray, are you confident that the roommate had any part of this attack whatsoever?
Again, I'm not going to comment on the evidence.
But the evidence so far does show any involvement.
Again, I'm not going to comment on other than the facts that or the evidence that we've gathered so far.
The DNA during the press conference jeopardized his right to a fair trial?
I don't believe so. This is part of a public document that we have to file as we file a criminal information. We have to file a probable cause statement. That's a public document, and so we're comfortable with that.
Are his parents and the roommate still cooperating?
I'm not going to comment on that either.
Do you have any evidence that the suspect had
I can't share any more than what I've already said.
This was an incredibly precise shot. Do you have any evidence that he went places to practice or had tracked his movements before the shooting that's giving you insight into how he prepared?
The evidence that I'm willing to share is what I just read in our statement, and it's in the
Ladies and gentlemen,
information.
I'm afraid we're going to have to cut it off there.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you consult Eric and Kirk about seeking the death penalty?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
There you have it, you guys. Now, in addition to that, I've got some more video footage that has come out, and as people have mentioned, starting here maybe in about 15 minutes, the trial is going to be starting up. Charlie Kirk assassination suspect is in court. I'm watching the live feed right now. As you know, sometimes they start way behind time, so I'm just keeping an eye on it. Right now, they're actually playing just what I shared for you right now. So we haven't got any new info on that, but let's take a look at this. Utah Sheriff ID's roommate of alleged Kirk assassination on Fox News. Let's take a look so you can get more information on that roommate.
Well, let's go to Matt Finn. He's in Spanish Fork, Utah. He's got some breaking news. He just spoke with the Washington County Sheriff, Matt Brooksby. Matt, what did he tell you?
Well, John, Fox was the first to talk to the sheriff in Washington County on camera, and he gave us a lot of information here. Obviously, there's a lot of concern about the roommate of the alleged assassin. The governor here in Utah says the roommate was a boyfriend, someone who is transitioning. There was a name being floated around, but now the Washington County Sheriff tells Fox News who the name is of the roommate, and we'd like to play that sound for you.
Okay, so the individual that they came in contact with at the condo roommate was Lance Twiggs.
So Fox Digital had previously obtained that name through an unconfirmed source, perhaps a family relative. We now have a law enforcement official on record telling us that the roommate of the alleged assassin is Lance Twiggs, who the governor here says is a boyfriend. I did ask the Washington County Sheriff if anybody from his staff made note of Lance Twiggs, if he was transitioning or anything like that, and the sheriff said that they don't have any information on that right now. Also, the sheriff tells Fox News that a lot of attention given to the dad turning his son in, but that the alleged assassin's mother was also present and is fully cooperating. The sheriff also telling Fox that the alleged assassin immediately asked for an attorney that night and did not make a confession, which the FBI Director Kash Patel and other authorities have also been saying that there was no confession on record. Also, coming from the Washington County Sheriff's Office, I would like to play the sound for you talking about what happened as far as once the suspect was taken into custody.
Do you know if Tyler ever made a confession to authorities, or did he remain silent once he was turned in?
My understanding is that he asked for an attorney, so there was no questions beyond that.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
There you have it, you guys. Now, we are also keeping an eye on the live feed. I'm taking a look here at Fox Live now. Let's see what they've got. Now, they're saying in 10 minutes or so, the trial is going to be starting. Let's see. They are following this, what they're saying.
All sound very supportable. We heard a lot of details of the evidence. I wasn't really in love with the obstruction or witness tampering because that stuff's admissible either way, and it's not really adding to the overall penalty here, but it's legally sufficient. What I thought was kind of intriguing was that you had what appears to be a pretty principled guy as the district attorney, basically saying at the end, a little civics lesson, we don't try our cases in the press, we're not going to answer a lot of questions, but he had a probable cause statement that was like a book. And, there's an art to writing those things. They didn't really have to write it with that much detail. But as kind of consumers of the news on a very high profile matter, it was interesting to hear such vivid details about the roommate, about the family, about the state of the evidence. And so, for a guy swearing off trying it in the press, we had the benefit of a very detailed statement today.
Yeah, it was very long and talking about the parents and how they potentially recognized their son as the images the FBI put out, those text messages like you mentioned with the roommate as well. Seth, I do want to ask you about that because there are those 7 counts laid forward and potentially the top definitely is going to be aggravated murder. Why are the other ones involved? Were you taken aback by what some of these counts were?
I wasn't really surprised to see the additional counts. The obstruction was particularly not surprising. That seemed to make sense. And witness tampering counts that have been included in the case of something that wasn't terribly surprising to me either. I agree that the presentation and the preparation of the case by the county attorney's office has been carried out in a very professional manner. There were two things that really struck me as I was watching this live today. The first was that the prosecutor's office did a lot of work in a short time frame. This was really thoroughly reviewed, investigated, and this criminal information, this essentially criminal complaint that was filed to trigger this proceeding was very narrative and very, very thorough, and it really is an airlock case. The second thing that really struck me is that this case will ultimately come down in a pivot point to the aggravating factors for the death penalty, which we have learned today is going to be pursued. And the aggravating factor, which is really at the top of the line here, is the commission of a felony with the grave indifference to life threat to somebody other than the victim. And given the facts and the circumstances of this case, I think that that's very clear and present, particularly under the fact pattern that we had reviewed for us today.
Yeah, and that's so very interesting. And Jim, I'm going to move over to you because obviously as a former federal prosecutor, we're also seeing kind of the developments and what's going on with Luigi Mangione and the charges that were dropped there in New York about that. This doesn't get to the feds, right? The feds are not involved at this point. Does the federal government ever get involved? Do you think they potentially have a case as well as the state?
I guess there's a couple of layers to that. I mean, the first thing is, one of the benefits of involving the FBI and all the federal resources and kind of jumping to the front of the line at Quantico for analysis is we're sitting here a week after the shooting and we know DNA results from across the board. So federal resources are forever going to be a part of the story. They're going to have testimony from federal experts when it comes to DNA and shoe prints and other things and fingerprints. But in terms of federal charges, I think most people tend to assume that federal means more serious or that it's going to be treated more seriously. And the reality is, under our Constitution, federal is actually the default when you have some sort of interstate connection, not where you normally do murder trials. So I think actually the case being tried in Utah makes sense as a state case. These are guys that have experience doing death penalty cases, doing General's Capital Review Committee, where we actually read through submissions from U.S. attorneys' offices on death penalty cases to make recommendations to the AG. And I'm just not really seeing it so far. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe there's some fact that's not out there. But it's not an interstate stalking case, which is what they're using in Mangione. And I think even that is a little bit of a stretch. It's not a hate crime because no matter what the horrific politicized motivation is, it doesn't seem to break down to the protected classes within the hate crime statute. It's not a crime in aid of racketeering. So in short, I'm just not sure there's going to be a federal backdrop of a federal indictment in this case because it's certainly not obvious, and it might be a bit of a stretch, and you don't really need to stretch it. Utah should be in a pretty good position to do justice with what they have.
That is so very good. We had a federal prosecutor on a formal one talking about potentially could be laid down potentially to try to get 2 bites at the apple, but they may not need that second chance at all. I do want to put up this. This is going to be the hearing that's going to take place in about 5 to 7 minutes. We'll take you out to this as soon as it happens. Until then, Seth, I do want to continue to get your thoughts because obviously this will be the first appearance, albeit a virtual one, by the suspect, Tyler Robinson. What kind of motions should we expect? What should we expect from that hearing today?
Well, since this is the initial appearance, it's important to keep in mind under this particular process that this is not a preliminary hearing. This is not a motions hearing. This is something that's going to be somewhat of a rote procedural matter. It's of course going to be very dramatic. It's going to be something that's going to really strike an emotional chord with everybody, just given the incredibly horrific circumstances here. I don't think it's going to be terribly long. There's going to be an element of formality to it. But if we just zoom out for a moment and take a look at what's at risk and what's at stake, The fact that this is a death penalty case and that we're going to be getting into the aggravating factors is so crucial. Looking at some of the reactions nationally, and there's been a wide span of reactions. Some of the folks that have taken a very callous view towards this really it almost shows kind of a gamification of the situation here. There's going to need to be a civilizational line drawn by the justice system to be able to demonstrate with painful clarity the consequences that this person is going to face for this horrific crime. So innocent until proven guilty, and it's the prosecution's burden. But this is something that everyone's going to keep a close eye on, and the road to justice really drives centrally towards the death penalty, especially given the horrific circumstances presented in this case.
Yeah, and obviously this is going to be a very highly publicized trial to take place there in this state courthouse in Utah. The first one, like you mentioned, obviously good clarity on what we could expect today. Jim, I want to ask you, how are we expecting the judge to balance all of this? Could this case be moved to a different location? What other facets are you interested in terms of that, how they're handling the notoriety of this?
Yeah, I mean, the good news for the prosecution is it's early. You expect a lot of notoriety around the time of arrest, around initial appearances. I don't think this one's going to fade from view, but it won't be quite the fever pitch we have now. The issue is going to be essentially pretrial publicity and the ability to pick an impartial jury. And you do that in death penalty cases through a couple of different ways, including questionnaires where you send it out to prospective jurors and you kind of thin the herd, eliminate people who are like, I know I'm going to give them the death penalty, or I know I could never do the death penalty. And so you have some tools for jury selection. But this is why it's a little dangerous to give so much information at today's press conference, because that's going to make its way into a defense motion. And you don't have to look too far to find examples of maybe activist courts, but courts messing with the ability to pick an impartial jury. I mean, Joker Zarniev from the Boston Marathon case got his death penalty overturned or remanded because of the trial judge, supposedly, and I disagree, but supposedly not asking the right questions or enough questions about pretrial publicity infecting the prospective jurors' views. I thought he actually did a good job. I think it's an activist kind of anti-death penalty moment for the Court of Appeals. But that's the kind of thing you have to worry about. You know, in Utah, eventually, you're going to have a layer of federal review that includes the Ninth Circuit, which is a crapshoot. Sometimes that's very liberal. Sometimes that can be kind of conservative. And I think there's a little bit of professionalism or discretion that needs to be out there by the prosecutor's office to not overplay their hand. They got a great case. From everything we've heard, it's good to know that they have a strong case under these circumstances, but they need to kind of ratchet down a little bit and not talk about the facts as much as they're doing going forward if they want to keep the ability to do this in Utah County.
All right, guys, I think I have time for one more question because it looks like this is about to get underway here on Live Now from Fox. All right, actually, we're going to sign away, guys. I appreciate your time. This hearing's getting underway. Trump is in the United Kingdom. Thanks again for joining us.
All right, good to see you.
All right, thanks so much. All right, great conversation there as always. And let's quickly shift gears. We do see President Trump touching down in the United Kingdom, speaking with reporters. Let's listen in live.
We had a good flight. A lot of people came with us. Tomorrow's going to be a very big day, Mr. Ambassador. Mr. President, it's going to be an historic day. It's going to be great. Thank you all very much. How do you feel to be back in the UK? It's historic. Well, I love it. I love Turnberry. I love Aberdeen. I have a lot of things here that they warm my heart. I want to tell you, it's a very special place. What's your message to the king? Well, we're going to see him tomorrow, and he's been a friend of mine for a long time, and everybody respects him, and they love him. Thank you very much. Any reaction to the charges?
Listening in there, President Trump alongside the U.S. Ambassador in the United Kingdom speak outside of that, the Winfield House in the United Kingdom. He also mentioned his relationship with King Charles III. They are planned to meet on Wednesday, and then Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, also they will hold an...
All right, you guys, I'm going to silence this really quick here because there's some more news coming out, and I want to get your thoughts on this. As take a look here now, just so you know, we are watching the trial that's supposed to be starting here very soon in the Utah court. I'm going to keep an eye on that, but take a look at this. This is really interesting. This is starting to circulate now in about the past hour or so. ABC News has reportedly called Charlie Kirk's assassination text messages with his transgender partner very touching. And let me know your thoughts on this. They're painting out the text messages back and forth between the two's transgender relationship as very touching. It's just amazing to me, like how they are trying to paint this. The mainstream media, man, let me know your thoughts. And you can see here the video clip of the report where they're doing that. It says ABC News correspondent Matt Gutman is under fire for putting a spotlight on what he called the very touching text messages that Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin sent to his transgender partner. Following the press conference announcing the murder charges against the 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, Gutman marveled at the such specific text messages that were unearthed about the murder weapon. But also, it was very touching in a way that many of us didn't expect, Gutman said. A very intimate portrait into the relationship between the suspect's roommates. And here you can see the pop-up at the bottom. Soon, Charlie Kirk's assassination suspect is going to be appearing in court. I am keeping an eye on that live feed for us, so that way we can see that when that pops up. You can see here right now they are going to be entering the room here very soon. But let's go back to this article. Now, so it was the duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And then on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and riveting press conference, Gutman continued. Now, on ABC News live stream platform, Gutman doubled down, calling it heartbreaking on so many levels, linking Kirk's brutal murder to the portrait of a very human person. I don't think I've ever experienced a press conference in which we've read text messages that are so fulsome, so robust, so apparently, allegedly self-incriminating, and yet, on the other hand, so touching, right? Gutman said. And the terminology he used, he was trying to protect him. He kept calling him my love. My reason for doing this is to protect you, but also asking him to delete the messages and not to speak to law enforcement. So there's this heartbreaking duality that we're seeing very tragically playing out. Wow. Let me know your thoughts. I have people messaging me about this. Gutman quickly went viral with critics slamming his disgusting comments. Wait, what? Said Senator Jim Banks. He exclaimed, wow, let me know what you think. WTAF, New York Post columnist Carol Markowitz reacts. They're saying that the text exchanges that took place were heartfelt. Okay, here we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at the live feed.
It is, well, I want to go through the qualifications for indigency, but that is my intent, Mr. Skordas. Very well. And I thank you for being here. So, Mr. Robinson, you have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, the court can appoint an attorney to represent you. I have reviewed your declaration of financial status and find that you are indigent. I'm provisionally appointing a Rule 8 qualified attorney to represent you on your case, Mr. Robinson. Along with the filing of their appearance of counsel, the assigned attorneys must file declarations with the court that outline their qualifications under Rule 8 and under Rule 8B and Rule 8C for counsel appointment in a case where death may be a sentencing option. I'm ordering that those declarations be filed prior to the next hearing date, which is set for September 29th at 10 a.m. Mr. Robinson, I also wish to inform you of your rights against self-incrimination. Anything that you say in court today could be used against you, and we want to protect your constitutional rights. Mr. Robinson, at this time, you will remain in custody without bail. Mr. Skordas, is there any other points that you wish to address?
No, thank you very much, Your Honor.
Turning to the state.
Yes, Your Honor. Chad Grunander for the state. I'm also joined, and they're listed as attendees, Ryan McBride, Lauren Hunt, David Sturgill, and Chris Ballard. We are the trial team on this case. I do have a few points I'd like to bring up with Your Honor. We have filed a pretrial protective order on behalf of Erica Kirk. We would ask the court to review that. It should be in your queue, Your Honor, and sign that.
Thank you. I have reviewed the pretrial protective order and will be issuing this pretrial protective order in favor of Erica Kirk. Is there any other business that we need to address today, Council?
Just for the court's information, we did file just recently, within the last few minutes, a notice of intent to seek the death penalty that was filed by Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray. So that should be in the court's file. Lastly, I would just indicate to the court and to, at this point, Mr. Robinson, that we are prepared to collect all of the discovery in this matter and get that turned over to the defense as soon as possible. Rule 16 requires us to provide what we have relied on in charging the information and bringing these charges within 5 days once it's requested. So that'll be prepared to disseminate to the defense as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Grander. Mr. Robinson, what I also want to do is you have the right to have the charges read that you stand charged of, and I wish to read those to you at this time. Thank you. Mr. Robinson, for count 1, aggravated murder, a capital felony in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-5-202, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk under the following circumstances. The defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant. Notice conviction of this offense may carry the death penalty or pursuant to Utah Code 76-3-207.7, a mandatory term of imprisonment for life without parole or an indeterminate term of not less than 25 years that may be for life. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2. Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. Notice if the trier of fact finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the victim targeting enhancement applies, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child aggravating factor, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider as an aggravating factor in their deliberations that the defendant committed a violent criminal offense in the presence of a child. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, a first-degree felony in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-11-210 sub 2 and 3C, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson discharged a firearm in the direction of Charlie Kirk, knowing or having reason to believe that Charlie Kirk may be endangered by the discharge of the firearm and that the act caused serious bodily injury to Charlie Kirk. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2. Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. Notice if the trier of fact finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the victim targeting enhancement applies, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child aggravating factor. The sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider an aggravating factor in their deliberations that the defendant committed a violent offense in the presence of a child. Count 3, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-8-306 sub 2, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson, with intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or pursuant to any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, conceal or remove the firearm used to shoot Charlie Kirk, and the conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or a first-degree felony. Count 4, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony in violation of Utah Code 76-8-306, sub 2. In that on or about September 11th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, with an intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or punishment of any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, destroyed, concealed, or removed the clothing he wore during the shooting, and the conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or first-degree felony. Count 5, tampering with a witness, a third-degree felony in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-8-508, in that on or about September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, believed that an official proceeding or investigation was pending or about to be instituted, or intended to prevent an official proceeding or investigation, and attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony, information, a document, or an item, to wit, directing his roommate to delete incriminating text messages. Count 6, tampering with a witness, a third-degree felony in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-8-508, in that on or about September 11th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, believed that an official proceeding or investigation was pending or about to be instituted, or intended to prevent an official proceeding or investigation, and attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony or information, to wit, directing his roommate to stay silent if the police questioned the roommate. Count 7, violent offense committed in the presence of a child, a Class A misdemeanor in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-3-203.10, sub 2, and 76-3-203.14, sub 3A, little double I, in that on or about September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, committed criminal homicide in the physical presence of a child younger than 14 years of age, with knowledge that a child was present and that may have been seen or heard the commission of the criminal homicide. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-3-203.14, sub 2, Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. That concludes reading the information. Mr. Robinson, this case is set for September 29th at 10 a.m. It will be a waiver hearing, and I will be the judge assigned to this case. Mr. Robinson, I invite you to join us at that time. Is there anything further, counsel?
No, Your Honor, we'll have counsel appointed by then. Thank you.
Mr. Gurander, anything further?
One item, just for clarification, Your Honor, the hearing on the 29th, is that in person or WebEx?
Thank you. That is a great question. It will be via WebEx.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
All right. I want to thank all parties for being here, and this concludes this hearing at this time. Court is in recess.
All right.
All right, you're just listening in there as they are ramping up this virtual hearing there taking place as those 7 counts were read aloud in that courtroom in Spanish Forks, Utah. Of course, the top of that being the aggravated capital murder charge, as the district attorney will seek the death penalty against the suspect, Tyler Robinson, in this case. As they said, the next real proceeding taking place in several weeks on September the 29th at 10 a.m. That will also be a virtual. But you saw there Tyler Robinson sitting very stoically, letting those counts be heard by the judge. following it very closely here on Live Now from Vox. Also of note that no counsel has been slotted for Tyler Robinson at this point. So I will need that before anything can really move forward in terms of documentation, evidence, and discovery. I'm Andy Mack. Let's give you a Live Now look there outside of the courtroom. We're following closely here on Live Now from Vox. Let's slide away for a quick 2-minute break.
There you have it, you guys. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. A lot of information coming out today. We saw that the live feeds that right now Charlie Kirk, the shooting suspect, Tyler Robinson, was charged with murder. They are seeking the death penalty in that. And also you can see the text messages allegedly detail the suspect's confession in the Charlie Kirk killing. I shared for you the video footage as he said he did it. And he said he explained why. He said that he felt like there was too much hate speech in his opinion from Charlie Kirk, and that if he had the opportunity, he was going to take it to assassinate Charlie Kirk. FBI Director Kash Patel revealed the details of the alleged Kirk assassination texts. So these texts, they're saying, are extremely convicting right now. And I just shared with you the video footage coming out on this. And so they're saying this is going to be continuing on September 29th. So we will see. I will keep you guys up to date as more information comes out. But that is the latest. Wanted to make sure you got it. And I see that the majority of the room is saying that he should receive the death penalty. And let me know in the comments if you didn't get a chance to put yes or no. If you appreciate the live stream, hit that like button, subscribe to stay up to date, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for joining me, you guys. Take care. God bless.